Travis Wayne Goodsell. This is a comment reply video to a commenter asking a question. James Jasmine is the one asking the question, and he's referring to the Nauvoo expositor right before Joseph was assassinated. And he does admit that he's not Mormon and doesn't know too much about Mormons, but he then claims that he has this factual information. But I'll reply. He says, first of all, I watch your videos for the learning that you provide. I do not know a lot about Mormons, so I cannot question your extensive knowledge on the subject. Well, that's nice. Mormons don't have that respect for me. But I do have one rather curious question. In June 7th, 1844, there are 3 affidavits cited in the Nauvoo Expositor by William Law, Jane Law, and Austin Cowles, notarized on May 4th, 1844, that have verbatim and verses from Doctrine and Covenants, section 132. They were wrote as a reference to a plural marriage revelation, wrote July 12th, 1843. You mean section 132 of the Doctrine and Covenants? Yep. By Joseph Smith, told in a meeting of the Nauvoo High Council, August 12, 1843. By Hiram Smith. I know affidavits can be forged, but you can't forge the newspaper? Joseph Smith was alive on June 7th, 1844. Obviously, he died on the 27th of June, 1844. Yeah. As soon as you get a little information, you begin to exercise stupidity. You've got to do a thorough research. You can't just hear things and think that you can now conclude from them. And so there's a lot involved here that needs to be set straight. The article in the Nauvoo Expositor was what gave rise to the arrest of Joseph Smith, as people were accusing him of being the one who ordered the destruction of the Nauvoo Expositor. And this was not the case. Joseph Smith was not in attendance in that Nauvoo meeting. They held the meeting without Joseph Smith. It's in the Joseph Smith papers. Joseph Smith was not in attendance. So Joseph Smith could not have given the order. And yet, as previous history tells us from the Joseph Smith papers, Joseph Smith was framed. And you need to understand who's responsible for this framing. It was a secret combination within Joseph's church that were purposely lying and deceiving to the new converts. These were the missionaries, who were converted originally by Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball. They were supposed to go around and tell everybody, hey, the Book of Mormon is in the learning of the Jews about utter destruction of America in the latter days. And instead they said it's the restoration of the gospel. Jesus, it's another testament of Jesus Christ. And it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's the name of our church because Jesus is in the center of the name. No. And because of this militant, evil-disposed and designing persons, I refer you to the Joseph Smith History 1838, verse 1. Joseph Smith had to therefore come out with that and set the record straight that he's Jewish, that Christianity is an abomination, and thus Jesus is an abomination, verse 19. And then tells us that our Christ is the learning of the Jews, and that Mormons should listen to him in the latter days when he comes for the first time, or they will be utterly destroyed, verse 40. Because apparently Mormons don't study their scriptures and assume they know everything and assume that I'm therefore wrong. Look it up yourself, Mormons. And so these Danites then were pissed with this and cooed the church. They chased out the leaders such as David Whitmer and Thomas B. Marsh, and Brigham Young was voted in to be the president of the 12 and then assumed to take over the whole church while Joseph Smith was rotting in Liberty Jail because of the actions of the Danites causing election fraud, the Mormon War, and the coup of the church. They didn't chase Brigham Young out. There's no document saying that Brigham Young was confronted by Danites and they had their rifles pointed at him, and Brigham Young stood strong and said, I will not deny the church that Joseph Smith founded. Nope, none of that. Everybody else? Yeah, not Brigham and Heber. There's just some clues that should have Mormons going, oh crap, I'm in the wrong religion. No wonder I'm paying tithing. And so Joseph got out. So they had to come up with something else. And if you go to the Wikipedia page on Joseph Smith and the criminal justice system, I think, you will see all the times that Joseph Smith was framed by the Danites. Over and over and over again. And if you're just going to believe what you're told, yeah, you're going to blame Joseph. Oh, that criminal Joseph, he was so evil. Why couldn't they just destroy the church? And, critics say that. You miss that it was Brigham Young framing Joseph Smith on all of these instances. And so when you get to the Nauvoo Expositor, this was a result of John C. Bennett. He's the one that triggered all this to get this done. John C. Bennett was a spy for the Danites as he was in Joseph Smith's presidency, I think. And it turns out that John C. Bennett was secretly, along with the other Danites, going to the various Mormon women and saying, hey, we're practicing polygamy, Joseph Smith approves, and I'm a medical physician, I can give you this elixir that will cause an abortion. And Mormon women fell for it. as they did the other Danites, because, well, Joseph is the president of the church. I guess that must be from Jesus. Mormon women got fooled too. And so you have John C. Bennett getting caught in the act and brought before Joseph Smith for his disciplinary counsel. And he confesses. It's not some situation where he denies and Joseph Smith is mean and doesn't believe him, but Mormons believe that he got revelation from God that he actually did it. No, he confesses. And so he's excommunicated from the church, removed from office. Joseph Smith does not allow polygamy. He's anti-polygamy. 6 times in the Book of Mormon. No polygamy. Had a whole chapter on monogamy. No polygamy. What happened to that? Where is it? Why is it not in our Doctrine and Covenants anymore? It was in the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants. Where is it? What happened to it? Section 132 replaced it. The year before Brigham Young died. There is no other source document. Now, James is saying that the Nauvoo Expositor contains quotes that are contained in the 1832 document. No duh. It also contains the linguistic pattern of Brigham Young from many of Brigham Young's talks when you combine them all together. No duh. This is what they were doing. Brigham Young, the year before he died, had been battling with the United States to maintain polygamy with tithing, thus making it a sex crime. Literally, sex trafficking. And was upset with the United States taking away his kingdom from him the very next year in 1848. He purposely fled the country to establish his kingdom, since the idea of letting Joseph Smith run for president and winning the presidency and then murdering him, which then became Lincoln, who was the one that was murdered instead of Joseph Smith. And then Brigham Young would then use that as cause to destroy the United States and take over the United States militarily, using Joseph Smith as the martyr, and likewise Sidney Rigdon as the vice president candidate. And so that was their fallback plan. But this Carthage jail thing with the Nauvoo Expositor came first. And so, yes, Brigham Young was involved in paying the Judas price to the Warsaw Lodge members who came in blackface to storm the jail, but Joseph Smith was found to have had a six-shooter, and that panicked them, and they ran out tending to the wounds of the guys who were shot, as then the backup plan was put into effect, and John Taylor, while wrestling the single shot away from Hiram Smith, it went off and shot Hiram up in the jaw, felling him to the ground. Joseph Smith then turned after the mob ran out and saw that John Taylor was standing over the fallen body of his brother Hiram, and then shot the remaining 3 balls at John Taylor. And John Taylor then cowardly ran under the bed to hide, as one of the shots was in the watch, and people are still in denial that the church came out and said, yes, it was, but we just don't want you to know that it was. And we're making you sign in to see our evidence that we have no clue. That was earlier this year. And so while he was mourning over his brother, Willard Richards came from behind and had gotten a 6-shooter when he claimed to have gone out and get some wine for the sacrament. Shot him in the back, took his body, dumped it out the window, down to the well, where the mob then were able to get their rifles again and proceed shooting over and over Joseph Smith there at the well. And then Willard Richards came over to the body of Hiram Smith and made sure that he was dead by shooting him right here, causing the blood stain on the floor. And then had to shoot John Taylor a couple more times to cover up that it was Joseph. Hold still! No, I'm not letting you shoot me again. It hurts. I promise you won't die. And then Willard Richards claims that he dragged John Taylor's body into the jail cell and hid him in the hay, but not Willard Richards, who was not blackface either, but somehow was able to avoid getting shot by the mob. But anyway, John Taylor says that he was the one who fell from the window getting shot. If you're gonna tell a lie in a group setting, you all need to make sure you tell the same lie. And even then, you've got to tell it in your own language so that the cops don't go, wait a minute, it's like they're reading from a script. Nonetheless, this is what happened here. And so, yes, this whole incident with the Nauvoo expositor was John C. Bennett wanting to get revenge on Joseph Smith. He was denied sanctuary among the Danites. They had their secret headquarters out in Adamon-Diamond, but John C. Bennett blew it. He got exposed by Joseph Smith and was excommunicated from the church, so he was no longer of use to the Danites. The Mormons now knew that John C. Bennett was excommunicated. And so he had to go his own way. And he would eventually go on to form an Illuminati order, a Halcyon order of the Illuminati, which shows his connection to the Danites, who were from the Illuminati as well. But as the first recorded instance of the title Danite was the Mormon War in 1838, in which that election fraud scandal, one of the Danites declared themselves as Danites, which is a Hebrew word meaning judges. These Danites were to judge Joseph Smith and find him guilty and take over, as their plot is the same plot that they pulled in 1838. In the latter days, there is going to be an election fraud, there's going to be an attempted coup of the United States, and there will be a civil war, etc., etc. And so yes, we've seen the fulfillment of that by those third great grandchildren who are in Congress. And so, yeah, they've planned this and passed it on to their descendants, and those descendants ran for Congress and got in, and so, yeah, that's why Mike Lee needed to not be kicked out by the 14th Amendment, Section 3, so that he can stay in and help the church with their overthrow of the government. What happened after the 2022 midterm election? What happened? Disrespect for Marriage Act. And then earlier this year, the debt crisis. And then the shutdown of the government, which, is very soon, 14th. 5 more days. Again, with a new House of Representatives Speaker who's a MAGA denier that the coup actually took place on January 6th. Exactly. As he's trying to push through for aid only to Israel package, which is not expected to pass in the Senate, but the church sent Uchtdorf to talk to the 3 Mormon senators to give instructions as to how to vote for other things that are also coming up as well, and to try to convince the other senators. And so that's what you need to understand, is that, yes, the church would say that you're correct. Joseph Smith was there at the meeting and gave the order to destroy the Nauvoo expositor because they were telling lies about him, which were actually true. But he's the prophet of Jesus, and so whatever he says has to go, or it has to be obeyed, and blah, 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 blah. And Mormon critics believe the lies, knowing that they lie, but still believing in their lies. I don't get it. Why, critics? Why? And so, yeah. The Nancy Rigdon incident also was in the newspaper. But I did the checking on that because Mackenzie had done a video on that claiming that Nancy Rigdon confesses that Joseph Smith approached her for marriage, and she was just a little girl as the daughter of Sidney Rigdon, and how abominable Joseph Smith is for doing such things. No, I checked. There was no actual handwritten document by her. It was all put in the newspapers by a person who was using the so-called document in printed form to condemn Joseph Smith. And I believe it was after he died that they were now claiming that Nancy Rigdon had made those claims, not before. But this is the problem here, is that because of the Nauvoo expositor in 1843, the church claims, yeah, Section 132 came from 1843, just as it says, July 12th, 1843, as recorded. No, it's not recorded in the Joseph Smith papers. It does not exist. I cannot find it. I've looked. All they have is Section 132 in the Joseph Smith papers in printed form. And so if it's there, I mean, we can check. Maybe I can be humiliated live on TV, live in a video. Joseph Smith Papers, 12 July 1843. Yeah, 12 July 1843. Revelation. Okay. Yeah, it is a faded document, so it would purport to the time period, which would then confirm that sections 15 through 18 thus were forged, because fresh ink on previously faded ink. But there's another person's handwriting at the very top that is not the same pattern match to the actual written document. It says Revelations given to Joseph Smith. So it's not him who did that. And they're denying. Yeah, the church used to allow you to do a screen save. Now they're not. They don't want you to have access to the original documents. So we'll have to... They have a download image button. There we go. There we go. Ooh, you even label it rather than have the generalized bleep bleep. Good. Okay. And so now we need to check the source note. Says Revelation, Nauvoo, Hancock County, Illinois, 12 July 1843. There's a person helping me, and this is the final year that he's helping me with. If he says he listens. I'm waiting. It's a lot of work to do. I really appreciate his help. Handwriting of Joseph Kingsbury. Okay? So there's our clue here. Now we get to find out who Joseph Kingsbury is. Joseph Kingsbury, LDS. Wikipedia. Joseph C. Kingsbury, 1812 to 1898, Mormon pioneer, leader in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Danite alert. Danite alert. Joseph F. Merrill. I know descendants. Okay, now I rule you all. And thus, I knew I wasn't going to be humiliated live on video. Kingsbury was a native of Enfield, Connecticut. He joined the Church of Christ. What? It's not Jesus Christ? In 1832, while living in the household of Newell K. Whitney. Dum dum dum. In Ohio. So there you go. They used him as a distraction. They didn't use the others that they were framing, or Willard Richards, who outright forged documents and edited things to force them to be different than what they were. Like the Joseph Smith History of 1838, for example. Check it. What's the name of the church again? Who put in the change? And so, yes, Noel K. Whitney, the infamous Danite, right there by Adam on Diamond. And so, yes, section 117 in those forged documents, July 8th, 1838, must be true, it's by Joseph. Let my servant, Newell K. Whitney. Then we scroll down and we see that the church in 1981 came out with the full quad with the topical guide, Bible dictionary, and footnoting. And they also decoded the coded words in the Doctrine and Covenants. And so, these decoded words in section 117, you can see here in verse 8. Is there not enough room on the mountains of Adam, Andai, Amen, and on the plains of Olaha, Shinha, or the land where Adam dwelt, which is where Bruce R. McConkie got his meaning of Adam, Andai, Amen. Wrong, Bruce. And so then we get down to verse 11, because those were decoded. Those aren't still coded. They didn't miss some. Babylon still exists. It's real. Section 1, verse 16. There's a reason why the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints does not decode Babylon. Just like they did not decode Nicolaitan Band and of all their secret abominations. It's the Danites. Nicolaitan, as you follow the footnote, takes you to Revelation where it's Nicolaitan. Oh, they're still around after all these millennia. And they're in the church. Yeah, Bill K. Whitney was a Danite. But this is a forged document of the Danites. So, yeah. Anybody connected to Newell K. Whitney can now be confident that they're looking at a lie, a forged document. Whether it's in a newspaper, whether it's in somebody's journal, whether it's an affidavit. There are just those factual matters that anything else can now be used to be tested with the factual details. And so, thank you, James, for this question. It was a close call. Oh, I might have to confess that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is true. Whew. And so we'll include this information on Joseph C. Kingsbury in my collection. So, yeah. I should also do a, well, if you're going to still be doing this, well, I saw Brigham Young in here. Newell retained the copy made by Horace and gave the earliest copy to Brigham Young, who presumably took it with him to Salt Lake City. In 1852, the year the Revelation was first published, not as canon. Young told an audience of church members that this revelation had been in my possession for years. Yeah, this was the year after Brigham Young got up at the pulpit of conference and demanded that all the trafficked Mormons, through the Perpetual Immigration Fund, because the United States took over the land and destroyed his kingdom. And so pissed, he said, "You will now all practice polygamy. But your Danites already have all the women. There are none for us. Well, that sucks for you. You got to go convert other women. But your Danites are the missionaries." Fine. Here's a brothel. And then another brothel when the divorces started rolling in for Brigham Young. So, yeah, I need to get this extra information, too, which will not be covered in the... Okay. So, thank you, James, for that educational research that I demonstrated for you how to do real church history research and not concluding hastily